The top stories. Former President Olusegun Obasanjo says the future generations to pay current debt being incurred by different countries in the continent. National Electricity Regulatory Commission says electricity distribution companies require increase or cannot increase tariffs without its approval. Federal government to suspend degree certificates from more countries like Uganda, Kenya, and Niger Republic. Details coming up shortly. Right, welcome back. I am Omohefe Peace Osemere. Former President Olusegun Obasanjo has said that the next generation of African countries will be bogged down by the huge debt profile of the continent. Obasanjo stated this during an engagement with 2023 awardees of the Future Africa Leaders Foundation, an initiative of Pastor Chris Oyakilome. In a statement by his special assistant on media, Kehinde Akinyemi, the former president was quoted as saying that with the level of mismanagement of the previous debt written off for some African countries, including Nigeria, it will be almost impossible for any administration to get similar gesture in the continent. Obasanjo said the debts were a trap that no individual or nation should fall into, as it constitutes a burden on any economy. The former president, who asserted that leadership was the #1 problem facing the continent, said the coming generations will have no choice but to pay the current debt being incurred by different countries on the continent. Now, officials of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, are reportedly considering the possibility of obtaining an arrest warrant against the former Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development, Sadiya Umar Farouk. According to media report, the development followed Umar Farouk's absence at the headquarters of the anti-graft agency yesterday. Umar Farouk is being probed over the sum of 37.1 billion naira allegedly laundered under her watch through a contractor, James Okwete. We head on now to Bauchi State, where the governor Bala Abdulkadir yesterday received 7 children who were kidnapped in the state and trafficked to Kano State before being rescued by police operatives. The senior special assistant on new media to the governor, Lawal Muazu, disclosed this in a statement made available to a national daily. According to the statement, the governor, while urging the parents of the victims to shun any thoughts of revenge, also announced 1 million naira donation each to support the education of the children. A report has it that the Kano State Police Command arrested 9 suspects who allegedly specialized in interstate trafficking, abduction, buying and selling of minors. The State Police Commissioner, Hussein Gumel, explained that the suspects were apprehended after conducting several intelligence-led operations through which the long-time cycle of interstate trafficking syndicates hibernating around Kano, Bauchi, Gombe, Lagos, Delta, Anambra and Imo States were identified and dismantled. Still to come, following the suspension of evaluation and accreditation of degree certificates from the Republic of Benin and Togo, a public affairs analyst joins us on news analysis to discuss what lessons can be learned from this development. Details of this and more coming up after the break. Right, welcome back. You're watching News Analysis live on Politics and Business Television. In reaction to media reports that Discos had concluded plans to hike electricity tariffs in the new year, the National Electricity Regulatory Commission has stated that electricity distribution companies require its approval before increasing tariffs. The spokesperson of the NERC, Usman Abba Arabi, disclosed this on Tuesday. Earlier, the NERC spokesperson had noted that the Commission had not approved any new electricity tariffs for any of the discos within the Nigerian electricity supply industry. Now, despite NERC's clarification that there was no plan to hike tariffs, Nigerians on social media expressed doubts, saying the discos might not wait for the Commission before rolling out the new tariffs. Now, Minister of Education Tahir Maman says security agents will go after Nigerians with fake certificates from foreign countries, already using them to secure opportunities in Nigeria. Maman, who described such individuals as criminals and not victims, added that he had no sympathy for such people as they are part of the criminal chain that should be arrested. The minister also said the federal government would suspend degree certificates from more countries like Uganda, Kenya, and Niger Republic. Now, following the suspension of evaluation and accreditation of degree certificate from the Republic of Benin and Togo, the National Association of Nigerian Students has requested that similar measures be taken against home-based institutions running unaccredited courses. It would be recorded that the Ministry of Education had blacklisted about 18 of those learning institutions following the undercover investigation conducted by National Daily, which exposed the activities of a degree mill in Cotonou, a major city of Benin Republic. According to the investigation, the undercover reporter bagged the degree from a Cotonou University within 6 weeks and also participated in the mandatory National Youth Service Corps scheme. NANS, while commending the federal government for the suspension of the evaluation and accreditation of degree certificates obtained from institutions in Benin Republic and Togo, however, called on the government to extend its sanction to tertiary institutions operating in Nigeria who are offering courses without accreditation from relevant authorities. Joining us now to discuss this is Dr. Adejo Sunday, a public affairs analyst. He joins us live via telephone this afternoon, I beg your pardon. If you can hear me, Dr. Adejo, good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me.
Right. So much to talk about with a lot to take in. One would say that the new year 2024 has, started on quite some sort of controversial note. First of all, let's get your reaction to the report that uncovered, this degree mill in Cotonou.
Okay, once more, thank you for having me, and good afternoon to Nigerians listening around the world. You see, education is the live wire of every society, and the quality of a society is a reflection of the quality of the education that the society gives to its citizens. Because in the final analysis, it is these people who we produce from these institutions that manages the affairs of our country, whether in the political, the economic, or the social sector of our economy. However, so this revelation is one too many. And is an unfortunate situation where people do not want to pass through the rigors, they don't want to pass through the process of socialization, they don't want to pass through the necessary stages of intellectual metamorphosis, but they want to just arrive at the final destination. A very unfortunate situation, and because such people take over political position, take over leadership position, are employed in different ministries, parastatals, and agencies of government, and in the final analysis they have nothing to offer because in themselves they were not trained, they are not even half-baked, they are not qualified to be described as half-baked graduates. These are part of the consequences that we grapple with as a society when we see that things are not working out well, our institutions are not properly managed because of the quality of individuals we have in our society. And so
Right.
this is a welcome development, and I expect that more interrogation, more investigation should go into this, and we need to fish out people who have degrees from such kind of institutions.
Indeed, Abid, the Minister of Education, Tahir Maman, has said that security agents, will go after Nigerians with fake certificates, from these foreign countries. But let's talk about the implication, this undercover investigation would have on Nigeria's education sector. What do you think? Hello. All right, it appears we're having some sort of, technical, issues to contend with right here in the studios. We'll take a quick break, and when we return, hopefully we're able to link up with Dr. Adejo Sunday to give us more insight on the topic of discussion. You're watching News Analysis live on Politics and Business Television. Do join us in a moment. All right, welcome back from that break. Thank you so much. This is News Analysis live on Politics and Business Television. And, well, we sincerely apologize for that, break right there. Of course, Dr. Adejo Sunday, he is back online. Dr. Adejo, thank you so much for joining us once again. I don't know if this is a result of poor network reception from your end, but thank you regardless for joining us again.
Thank you.
All right, so before that, break, I was actually asking, the implication this undercover investigation would have on, the country's education sector. We know, of course, that the education sector in Nigeria has been bedeviled, by or with, if you like, a number of challenges in recent times. What do you think this undercover investigation, the impact it will have on the education sector?
A lot of impact, and of course the impact is multi-dimensional. But before interrogating the impact of this undercover, revelation on Nigeria's educational sector, we must first commend our educational system. You see, more often than not, a prophet is not regarded in his hometown. As much as we bastardize our educational system, we try to make a rubbish of it as though nothing good can come out of Jerusalem. We have seen obviously that something very good can actually come out from Jerusalem. We have seen that our educational system cannot be compared to the kind of educational system we have in some of these neighboring African countries. In fact, we have seen evidence of our students doing wonderfully well in different parts of the world, which gives kudos and credence to the quality of our educational system that we still ourselves do not appreciate. Having said that, one implication of this undercover revelation is that it goes to say that the educational system in Nigeria is not as bad as we make of it. So that's a positive implication. It also goes to show that the educational system in Nigeria, the quantity or number of institutions we have in Nigeria is not also sufficient to address the educational need of Nigerians.
Do you think that is the case? Do you think that's the case? So a number of Nigerians just prefer to, acquire education elsewhere, probably because they cannot, contend with, the protocols here in Nigeria.
Not absolutely. The truth remains that in analysis we try to base our argument on fact. What is the population of Nigerians who sit for JAM and sit for WAEC and have the minimum cutoff mark to be admitted into universities and are not admitted? Because every university has carrying capacity. The Joint Admission and Matriculation Board examination gives university quota they are supposed to admit. The National Universities Commission gives you quota that you are supposed to admit, and you have applications beyond the quota that you're supposed to admit. So what becomes the fate of these people who are not admitted? Right? For instance, if you take an analysis of how many students applied to study law, for instance, in the University of Abuja, far beyond the requirement. How many of them are qualified? Over 80% have qualified. How many of them can University of Abuja admit? University of Abuja cannot admit beyond the quota that the NUC and JAM has asked them to admit. And so this leaves Nigerian youth with no choice than to look for an alternative means to get educated. Right? There are private universities that can accommodate some of these people, but the question is, how many Nigerians can afford to send their children to private universities? And so when they cannot do that, they are left with no option than to patronize some substandard universities outside Nigeria. That's one dimension. The second dimension is that there are Nigerians who have proven beyond reasonable doubt that they do not have the capacity to undergo our university system. Hence, they resort to cheaper means of acquiring degree. However, that won't also be possible without some collaborators in Nigeria. There are some collaborators, some saboteurs in Nigeria who are making millions of naira from this business, encourage Nigerians to come and get degree within a shorter period. And of course,
that actually speaks volumes, Dr. Adejo. But if I must come in real quick, are you by implication trying to say that we have, you know, degree mills in Nigeria as well?
I will not subscribe to that, because as an academic, I understand that every university in Nigeria is approved by the National Universities Commission. And so without that, you cannot run a university. A university must be licensed, the courses must be accredited before those can fly. Yes, there are some mushroom, not even degree mills. If you go to places like Benue State, like Kogi State, some part of Nasarawa State around the Maraba, Nyanya, Masaka, you will see some fake colleges of education, fake polytechnics that are not accredited by any accrediting institution. And some vulnerable Nigerians become victims of these fake institutions. They give them degree, they give them certificates. When they get to the labor market, then they get to discover that these institutions are not approved. One cannot run away from this totally. But for universities, there are no universities in Nigeria that can operate without NUC's approval.
All right. Okay. You know, now the Association of Nigerian Students, NANS, now they've called on the federal government. Although it's actually good that they commended the federal government first of all for suspending evaluation and accreditation of degree certificates from the Benin, Republic of Benin and Togo. However, they are also calling on the federal government to beam its searchlight, on tertiary institutions operating in Nigeria, right? Who are also offering unaccredited courses. Do you think the federal government should, take this, to heart?
Yeah, I think that's very important. If a course is not accredited, on no ground should the university run those courses. So far we have seen some high degree of greed on the side of universities, university proprietors and proprietors, because there are some courses, for instance, that when you run them in a university, you can be sure of the kind of patronage that you will get because of the population that will be interested in studying such kind of a course. To run those kind of courses, you need to have the required infrastructure, you need to have the required manpower to run those things. And so when you do not have them, there's no need running that. It therefore means that the National University Commission, JAM, must also continue to do monitoring and evaluation of existing universities in Nigeria. Over time, accreditation takes about 4 to 5 years, but haven't given a university, haven't accredited a university and a course in a university. Do they go back to check the internal mechanism of the university, whether at the point of accreditation and 2 years after accreditation, is the university retaining the standard with which or for which they were given accreditation? These are things that are very important, especially as the NUC continues to approve more private universities in Nigeria. There's a need to checkmate, there's a need to ensure that there is standard, there's a need to ensure oversight of these institutions so that the objective for these institutions will not be disappointed at the end of the day.
Right, Dr. Adejo, now let's bring in, NYC into the conversation. Of course, this undercover investigation has also been able to expose the fact or reveal that some Nigerians who actually patronize these degree mills, in Benin Republic, they've also they've also gone through the mandatory National Youth Service Corps right here in Nigeria. What does that tell you about, the NYC scheme?
Well, I think I will not so much put the blame on the NYC. I am aware that the NYC has some degree of investigation they carry out in some of these African universities. I am aware of several universities that have been blacklisted by the NYC. However, I don't think it's the exclusive preserve or they do that. The NYC is just an institution that presents a platform for Nigerians to serve their fatherland. The NYC is not an institution that accredits. The NYC does not have the capacity to decide whether a university meets up with the standard to award a degree or not. It is the job of the National Universities Commission. It is the job of the Ministry of Education. Therefore, I will feel that the NYC is going the extra mile in doing the job of the Ministry of Education and of the National Universities Commission. There is therefore a need for the Ministry of Education to improve our oversight functions. There's a need for the National Universities Commission to expand our oversight function to all of these countries. It will surprise you to know that there are so many universities, even in Europe, that are fake universities. There are universities in Europe, in Asia, in some parts of the world that Nigerians go to school and they come back home to come and serve. You don't expect the NYC to go to Europe to go and carry out those investigations. It is National Universities Commission and the Ministry of Education that should profile all these existing universities and tell the NYC which they should allow candidates from and which they should not.
All right. Now that the Minister of Education, Tahir Mamman, has said that security agents will go after Nigerians with fake certificates from, foreign countries, already using them to secure job opportunities, and the likes in Nigeria. Is that really a realistic approach to, addressing this, disturbing trend?
Well, I do not see how realistic that is in my candid opinion. I don't think that's realistic. I can tell you authoritatively, I've been in the civil service, I've been in the public service, I've been in the private sector. I can tell you authoritatively there are people who head organizations and agencies in Nigeria with fake certificates. There are government workers with fake certificates. So why now? Why not before? Why do you employ people without first of all, evaluating, without first of all determining the validity and authenticity of their certificate? Which is one good thing WAEC and some universities are doing now. If you are admitted into any university in Nigeria, like I know, you are required to send a scratch tag to the university with which they will use to validate your WAEC or your NECO. So why can't we duplicate certain good practice such as this in terms of recruitment into the public service? I know, for instance, if you are to be recruited into the Nigerian Armed Forces, especially as a cadet, they will evaluate and investigate your WAEC. And so if you have a fake WAEC, then you are just going to labor in vain. We need to begin to put this kind of mechanisms in different organizations. Interagency collaboration is in this type of thing because the ministry does have the manpower capacity to carry out this kind of investigation. What is the total number of public servants in Nigeria? What is the total number of Nigerians in the private sector? That would be like chasing a shadow.
Indeed, there's so much to talk about here with a lot to take in. In recent times, Nigerians have been made to understand that there is so much malpractice and corruption going on within, the education sector. Of course, you recall what happened last year with regards to the young girl in Anambra State who actually altered her JAMB results. So it speaks volumes. It tells you that there are, dimensions and levels, to these things. But at the end of the day, let's hope and see the outcome of, the effort that the Education Ministry and, of course, the federal government is putting in to address, this malpractice or malpractices, if you like, in the education sector. Thank you so much, Dr. Adejo Sunday, a public affairs analyst. Thank you so much for talking to us.
Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure.
Right. And that's it for news analysis today. Thank you so much for watching. I am Omo Ifepeace Osemere. Don't forget you can follow us across social media platforms at Politics and Business Television. I'll be back at the top of the hour with the news update. Good afternoon.